Hey, it's 9 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, jerks. Another day in court today. Karen Reed trial. Big news today. Kind of big news. The governor. We've been feeling this for a while that this case is over, and especially after Michael Proctor. And today, the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, she made a statement. She called Michael Proctor's text disgusting. Disgusting. Is she part of the PR campaign? They accuse everybody. Boston Herald today, front cover about Michael Proctor's disgusting comments on the stand. Today was DNA time. DNA experts and Brian Tully. But I'm still like so caught up in Michael Proctor. I think everybody is. It's caught the world by storm. Everybody is talking about this case now. Everything is blowing up. The anti Karen Reed side, I don't even know how they're still doing shows and still talking. Let's bring up attorney Bederow, who's breaking all the records, who everyone wants to hear from tonight. This is it's been unbelievable here. And it's Bederow time. Let's bring up, and Maza Media is going to be here a little bit later. He's on another show right now, LTL True Crime. Let's bring up attorney Bederow right now.
How
Hello.
are you? How are
Good.
you?
A little amped up tonight just because just the reality of all of this over this last couple weeks and days and just crazy.
It's pretty crazy. Today a lot of people seemed all fired up or concerned about the DNA evidence. I'm not sure why, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Um,
Today was kind of like yawn. It was a yawn day after just major stuff day after day after day.
I think the DNA evidence, if anything, or lack thereof, lack of testing, actually helps the defense. It supports their theory. But when people hear DNA and they hear about a match of DNA of John O'Keefe to a taillight or whatnot, or a hair that may or may not be his, they seem to get a little freaked out. And I'm not sure why, because when you have DNA evidence, it all depends on the facts of the case, what the evidence is, what type of DNA evidence it is, and does it matter or not. And a lot of it in this case doesn't matter, but a lot of it really matters, and it really helps the defense. So when you get to the taillight, there was some concern or a lot of excitement over the fact that John O'Keefe's DNA was matched on the taillight, which it was 8 billion to 1, whatever the numbers are. We see this all the time. That's how they do this. So it's his. There's no question his DNA is on the taillight piece, but this is not a stranger case. And moreover, this is a guy who lived essentially with his girlfriend. They lived together for all intents and purposes. They were together a long time. So the fact that his DNA would be on her vehicle means nothing. It's no different than any of you having the DNA of your spouse on your car. You touch each other's car, you may drive it. The taillight in particular is right near the lift gate. You could put your hand on that by unloading groceries from the car. So this is not a stranger rape case where the presence of DNA would be powerful evidence linking two people together that ought not to be linked together. But the reality is, these are boyfriend, girlfriend, essentially living together, driving each other's cars, touching each other's cars. So you would expect John O'Keefe's DNA to be on the car. And again, the position of the taillight, not that dramatic. If anything, it's a little suspicious if the idea is that his DNA is on the taillight because that's the point of impact. If you recall the testimony of what was it, Hartnett? Is that her name from
Yes, Maureen Hartnett.
a
Yeah,
week a
Hartnett.
week ago? Who said she looked here, there, and everywhere on the
Everywhere.
car, and most importantly, there was no presence of blood anywhere, which raises the next important point. DNA can be left in many different forms. Now, obviously, if the DNA on the taillight was in the form of John O'Keefe's blood, that might be a little more powerful because that's a little less natural. That's not from emptying groceries, for example. But There's no evidence that it was. Lally didn't ask, which is very telling, because if it was, you can be damn sure he would have. And then you go back to Hartnett. So it's what they call touch DNA, and touch DNA is nothing more than your hands, skin cells, could be rubbing up with your elbow, anything at all. But there is a huge difference between touch DNA and DNA that is found in blood, semen, in rape cases, things like that. There's a big difference. So the taillight is really much ado about nothing unless they establish that it's blood. Then you heard a whole bunch of stuff that John O'Keefe's DNA was found in blood all over his clothes. And of course, everyone's response to that should be, well, obviously, I mean, he got injured seriously and bled in his clothes. So why he spent 30 minutes going over that, I'm not sure. But the large point, and frankly, the important point that favors the defense, is this kind of shocking revelation that the blood that was contained on his pants was in the form of a mixture. And a mixture is just, that means that they could pull more than one DNA profile in the blood. So the blood was a mixture of 3 people. That means they were able to determine 3 unique profiles were present in the blood. It's the blood DNA of 3 people, one of whom was conclusively matched to John O'Keefe. Obviously, that makes perfect sense. The interesting part is the other 2 are unknown. And what makes it even worse is, here we go once again, right into they play into the defense theory's hands, including Tully from earlier today, who told you I don't have to do any other investigation when there's a dead guy in the lawn without a coat, that sort of thing. They never tested anyone. Now, once they learned that there were 3 DNA profiles, any honest police department and prosecutor analyzing this case, investigating the case, post-indictment or pre-indictment, whatever, knowing what the defense had alleged, would have said, that's interesting, let's track that down, and maybe it leads somewhere and maybe it doesn't. And what they didn't do, and what they should have done, was approach Brian Albert and ask for a buccal swab of your DNA. And one of 2 things would have happened. He would have said, okay, you get a profile and you attempt to see if it's matchable. And if it matches, well, you got a brand new case here. Something's going on. If it doesn't match, good for him. It's not him, or it's, there's not enough DNA to make a match. It's inconclusive, maybe. Or the other alternative is he says, no, go get a warrant, which you probably can't do at this point. But that would also be suspicious. Why wouldn't you do that? And you do it to Colin Albert with the bloody knuckles that everyone's aware of. You do it to Brian Higgins. You could do it to any number of people. And these people didn't do it because they didn't want to do it. And it was the most basic thing to do in an honest investigation, because you go where the evidence leads, you go where the facts lead, excuse me. But in this case, as Proctor said yesterday, we have our girl. So they didn't care. They didn't want to do it. They didn't do it. And this is totally supportive of the defense theory of tunnel vision, that they were going to get her, focus on her. It's totally consistent with the text messages of Proctor, his testimony where he dug in. He's going to die in that hill, that I knew it was her right away and I don't need to talk to anyone else. It was similar to what Tully was telling you today, that, he didn't think it was in the least bit suspicious that a man with one shoe was lying dead in a snowstorm without a coat. And he knew he was going to that house. He knew that he had been dropped off, any of that stuff. So how this helps the DA, it doesn't. Now, if you have no case and you do establish that John O'Keefe's DNA is on the taillight, I guess if you use, a scale of relativity where anything is good for them, the fact that his DNA is on the taillight is, from their perspective, helpful, because it at least allows them to make the argument that, it could be. But again, they have the burden of proof, and saying it could be isn't gonna do it. And the real problem they're gonna have is that they live together, they share everything together, and it's really no different than anyone you live with or spend a lot of time with in your life. If you were to take DNA samples, your DNA and your partner's DNA is going to be all over the place because you potentially can leave DNA every time you touch certain surfaces. So if they think this moved the ball forward today, it didn't. In fact, it actually added more suspicion and
Exactly.
more ammunition to the defense theory, because it's really indefensible, investigatively speaking, not to at least be honest to the investigation and seek DNA samples. And I don't mean seeking DNA samples from Uri and Proctor, which is lovely and wonderful, but nobody really cares where their DNA is. It's not going to be in the blood on John O'Keefe's pants. And if the idea is to show that it wouldn't have been on the taillight either, well, in the event that one or more of them were kind of playing with the taillight, I don't think they would have done it without gloves. Okay. So none of this really matters. And, there's a lot of excitement and concern. It's pretty much one big nothing burger, other than supporting the defense theory that the cops were never going to be honest to the investigation and seek out whether that DNA could have matched. I mean, if that DNA was Colin Albert's, what kind of case do you have now? None.
None. Game
Any of
over.
these people, they didn't want to try. They didn't want to know. They didn't care because, as Proctor said, we have our girl.
People are worried about your TV in the background giving us a copyright strike. I don't know. That's a good call. I don't know. Can win it? I don't
It's
know.
just a Red Sox game, but there.
It's a Red Sox. There we go.
We don't want copyright strikes.
Yeah, we don't want any copyright strike. I'm
off campus. I'm out of my house. So
you are. I was gonna say you got a different background. Still looks nice though.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned 3 DNA profiles, which is, again, it just adds to the suspicion. It makes sense. Like, you would think immediately if you saw 3 DNA profiles, you would think fight, right? I mean, wouldn't that be the
It
first
is
thing you would think?
not common in a car accident in which you bleed all over yourself to find a mixture of 3 DNA profiles in the blood. That doesn't make any sense. And one last point I forgot to mention, because you see this all the time. Oh my God, they didn't cross-examine, so they just ate it. They didn't cross-examine because there's no need to. The points I just made are not scientific points. They're common sense points. That's not a point you're going to raise with a scientist. Who cares? They're not challenging the DNA evidence because they don't want to challenge the DNA evidence, because it speaks for itself, and they're going to sum up on the mixture of blood DNA, which is apparently on John O'Keefe's pants. So there's no need to cross-examine. That doesn't mean that this is a problem. Could they have asked a few questions? Sure. But what their point is going to mean has nothing to do with the scientist. So it's really, they're sending a message to the jury. We're not worried about this, and there's no reason to be. And all this online chatter about, they're eating the evidence because they know there's no answer. I mean, I'd stop reading people who, and I say this with all due respect, because everyone has a right to an opinion, but if you don't know what you're talking about, you really probably shouldn't say anything.
Exactly. And why bother even reading that crap? I block them so quickly. I just don't have time for it in my life. I don't even want to look at it. Just, there's certain people that like that Kevin Cottage Shell. He's the only one I haven't blocked, but he's entertainment at this point.
They just look. I mean, again, they have a right to say whatever they want and this and that. But all I can say is, if you think that this DNA evidence helps the DA, you don't understand how evidence, trials, summations and burdens of proof work at best. Okay. In the best possible light for the DA, they can argue that maybe John O'Keefe's DNA got on the taillight because he got drilled by it. Okay. Now, that means, by the way, it would have had to have what? Hit him in the hands. Are there any injuries on his hands? Hit him in the back of the head. Sure, but there'd be blood, right? Where that wound was. I'm not sure where.
There in the hands there was some bruising, but again, it looks like a fight. It's like
Yeah.
on the knuckles, right on the
Well,
right here.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But the point is, in the best case scenario, they can argue credibly that he came into contact with the taillight, but they have the burden of proof. So they have to eliminate the speculation or the plausibility that maybe it just came from a week, a month, a year ago when they went food shopping and he put his hand on the taillight while he was lifting the gate or touched it or rubbed up against it. And that's it. And by the way, that's entirely plausible because he would have been in contact with the car most likely all the time. They're certainly not going to prove that he wasn't. So that's an argument for them, but it's not impressive. The other clothes, put the jeans aside. The jeans are a huge deal, but the other clothes where he goes through them and establishes that it's got John O'Keefe's DNA to a number that we can't even pronounce. Well, of course it does. He bled all over them. I mean,
That's nothing.
that's
Obvious. We didn't even need to test that. We do.
no.
I mean, the only thing we need to test is the other two profiles. I mean, that's what we found out really on that is that there's two other profiles there.
He could have done all of the irrelevant DNA in about 5 minutes and just said, "Did you test da 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 da?" And did you get results? And just spit them off one at a time.
Right.
No, but he wants to do it where we waste an hour of everyone's time. So that doesn't matter. But he just buries the lead. I mean,
Yeah.
the mixture of three people in the blood on the pants is
Huge. That's what everyone should be talking about. I hope the Herald I hope the Herald and all the news media caught on to that today.
But it's a double whammy for the DA because number one, it tends to show that more than likely would have come from some kind of incident involving three people, all of whom bled, which is consistent with, a beat down or whatnot. But then the follow-up to that is it feeds right into the defense theory that the logical thing for an honest investigator would have been to do, follow the evidence, and go seek DNA samples. Cops do that every day.
Exactly. I mean,
Every
they do it for murders. They look at the one what's her name? Oh, I can't remember. The one on the Cape. The one on the
I know who you're talking about.
yeah.
Well,
Krista Worthington. They took everyone's DNA.
Listen, I represented somebody years ago, not a good guy, who committed a horrific murder. Okay. And the way he got caught was they basically did a DNA dragnet. All right. They had DNA all over this poor girl's body, but they had no sample to match it to. And they literally, putting aside the constitutionality of this, because that's a whole nother discussion, but in this case, it didn't matter. They literally were going around this town in upstate New York asking they knew it was male DNA. Okay. And they would just go up to any man and just say, can we have your DNA? And of course, anyone who said no went straight on the suspect list, whether that's justified or not. And this guy, it's intimidating, by the way, when they ask you that, because you're afraid you're going to look guilty. And this guy said, sure, take my DNA. And his DNA was all over her. And, he's serving a life prison sentence, essentially, as a result. But the point is, whatever the cops were doing in that case, legally or not, which is, again, another discussion. The point is, that's what cops do. And that's what they're supposed to do. Because if you don't think it's suspicious that there were three people's DNA in blood on his pants when you're being told that he got hit by a car and was left to die in the snow,
huge. It's
then
huge. Yeah.
you have blinders on beyond belief, and you are confirming every single thing the defense has said in this case.
I don't know how they could explain that away in the closing arguments. I want to ask you a question about this DNA because you have 3 DNA profiles in the blood. Can the feds come in and seize the clothes and do their own test? Or is it possible they've already done that? Like, could they actually come in and say, hey, we're taking this now. We're going to do the 3 DNA profiles.
They can, but remember, I mean, the feds are not basically going to, do a murder investigation. It would have to be part of something else. Now, could they lop the murder into, another kind of case? They probably could. I mean, federal jurisdiction is tricky. If they really wanted it, they could find it. So sure, they could do it. Now, I don't remember what the testimony was in terms of whether the other 2 samples were even, whether there was sufficient DNA, because, you have to have
Enough.
a quantum that's testable. There are times where it's just not enough. And I think the guys testified to this today, but you see this all the time in the cases we have. Sometimes they detect DNA, but it's just not enough. So they say it's inconclusive or not enough, insufficient for testing. But you know what? You still do it. You never know. And also, why not see how they react? I mean, what if they go up to Colin Albert and ask for DNA and he says, get the hell out of here. No way. I'm not doing anything. And you know what? He has a right to say that. You don't have to submit to the cops, but it becomes weird. Or like the guy I told you about in upstate New York, they just may say yes, and it just may turn out to be them, or it may scare them. They start doing other things that you're watching them. They start acting more and more
Freaking out. Yeah.
suspiciously. It's an
Turning up the heat. Yeah.
It's an investigative technique that real investigators would use all the time. But the bottom line is that the Norfolk DA and the Massachusetts State Police did not care.
Yeah. And the thing of too, like going back to the hair thing and all the evidence in this case, people have brought it up. Like we can't even, even beyond what you said, that it's probably, if this wasn't a rigged case, you would just think, like you said, that it's because of the family member. They could leave a hair there anytime. But in this case, most of us at this point don't trust anything that is touched by Proctor, O'Buchanan, even like none of these guys, any of these Canton police, we don't trust them to not plant it.
You just raised a really good point, which is whether the defense hones in on that point or not. I'm sure part of the jury's analysis will be, irrespective of whether, well, he could have touched the taillight, all this, is why do we believe it? Because the Massachusetts State Police say so in light of everything else. So we haven't even touched on the possibility that the jury may just, as is their right, dismiss all of the scientific evidence out of whole cloth because of the pathetic way that the evidence was gathered, preserved, put into a chain of custody, everything. I mean, this case is a textbook case on how not to secure evidence, voucher evidence, safeguard evidence, establish a chain of custody. I mean, this is a joke. And even then, you have the Sally port, right, where the solo cups are lying around. So that's right. And then you mentioned the hair. Who cares? The hair is the exact same point that we just talked about the taillight. I mean, if it is his hair, which I guess is an open question, but whether it is or it isn't, so what? I'm sure my hair could be on my wife's car. That's
Exactly.
like normal. But probably not, one strand that reverses itself when it gets inside the heated Sally port after being in a blizzard for an hour and a half. So
on a tow truck.
On a tow truck. So I don't think any of this helped the DA, other than it gives them at least a good faith, credible argument about the taillight, whereas most of the evidence they've had so far is just kind of really pathetic. I don't think it's pathetic for them to argue that the taillight has his DNA because she nailed him with it. But is that compelling? No, not at all. What's compelling is, why the hell are there 3 DNA profiles in the blood on his pants when he got hit by a car? He
I
didn't
hope.
bleed. He
Yeah,
didn't bleed 3 people's DNA on his pants.
I'm praying that's the coverage everywhere on court TV, Surviving the Survivor, Boston Herald, Channel 25,
Yeah.
Channel NBC Boston. I hope they're all running with that. That there's 3 DNA profiles, which leads you to think that there must have been some kind of fight. I mean, this is just it is. It's shocking every day. There's
I heard
something here that
I
backs
heard
up
that
the defense.
driving today, and I almost like drove off I-95 when I heard that. I couldn't believe that. They're calling DNA experts, and you start thinking, all right, maybe there's something, maybe. And then you hear a match to a taillight, and I know everyone's first reaction is, oh my God, oh my God. And then you realize, well, it's not a stranger's car. I mean, that's normal. It's
Exactly.
really, and the usual suspects are calling it compelling evidence of this, and they don't know what they're talking about. They obviously don't understand how criminal trials work and how any of this works. It's just DNA can be very powerful and very effective if it's in a place where it ought not to be.
Right.
But if it's supposed to be everywhere you touch, and if it's a place that you frequently touch, it doesn't mean much. And if
Yes.
it's not blood on the taillight, it's not compelling.
Exactly. If it's not blood, that's the big thing. Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, finally came out. You were predicting that this Proctor stuff would be major and have major ramifications. I think I felt the same way. I think all of us have that this should shake up things in the state. Even the governor of Massachusetts came out finally today and said it's disgusting, those Proctor text messages. How do you think that will affect the Karen Reed case? Do you think that's helpful? And do you think she's on the Karen Reed PR since everyone that has
Yeah.
any questions or comments about it gets accused of that?
It's only helpful if the jury hears it, and they shouldn't. I mean, if they're honoring their obligations, then the jury doesn't hear it. Now, on the other hand, there's so much press locally about this case. It's not like the jury is sequestered where they're literally under lock and key by court staff. They're told on their honor system not to listen to anything, but you can hear things before you have time to turn it off. And it's little things. I mean, you could be eating dinner at home, watching the news, and they say, up next, the governor slams state police, and you turn it off, but you heard it. So
Yeah,
it only helps if the jury hears it, but you hope they don't. I mean, and in all fairness, they shouldn't hear it. Whatever your views on the case are, you don't want juries running around not following their oaths and doing what they're supposed to do. So officially, I don't think it helps the case, but it supports the other stuff we talked about. Proctor's gone. Okay, trust me. The governor just called him a piece of garbage. Essentially, the local papers have called him garbage. His career is ruined. He's never going to testify again because he's not credible. He's never going to be assigned a new case ever again, which makes him literally useless. And it's not going to be the state police's decision ultimately. When the governor says what she says, it's only a matter of time, but it's not going to happen before the trial's over. But he's going to get his administrative hearing if that's what he wants to do. And if he's smart, he'll make a deal with, the department, grab as much state money as he can on the way out, and just disappear and, crawl back under the rock from whence he came.
get some questions that came in. Here's one. They said, Mark, how do you feel the prosecution's already trying to discredit the plow driver, Lucky
Um,
Lozman?
well, I mean, this goes to Tully. Tully and Proctor, and I believe, again, I think, I mean, I'll get to this in a minute, but it's going to be very curious to know how the jury, are they smart? Are they interested? Are they listening? Because when you hear witnesses like Tully and Proctor, everybody expects cops to be biased in the sense they're prosecution witnesses. They prosecute people who they believe are guilty. So that's a bias. But when you look at Proctor the other day, for example, where he's just every answer is, and I knew she did it, and I knew this, and because I, he's like, he's trying too hard. He's just got these canned speeches ready to go where he looks over the top biased. He's trying too hard. And Tully was even worse, because here's a guy who says, if you recall many times today, well, I would push back on that. Or he says, I would argue this. Dude, your job is to answer questions posed to you by the lawyers. I challenge your premise, he said. That guy is sparring to win points. He's trying to win points. He's not there to answer questions. So a perfect example of that is the plow driver, because, clearly the witness that they were referring to was the plow driver. And Tully went into this soliloquy about how not credible, lucky, I just get a kick out of that, how not credible this guy is going to be, because he changed his story 4 times, and he identified one picture, and if I did that as a police officer, it would be suppressed. It's like the Shakespeare thing, the whole, like, methinks you doth protest too much. Methinks he's too much
Invested. Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason to go into that level of attack. But so how does it look? It looks pathetic. It looks desperate. But more importantly, it doesn't look even-handed. And it plays into the defense theme that these guys are trying to win points, not honestly answer questions.
Yeah. Not find justice. They're trying to win this beef that they have with
Yeah.
Karen Reed and Turtle Boy. Basically, it seems
And
like,
Tully did the same thing when they were, debating whether things he found suspicious would have warranted going in the house. And when he's telling you, the guys out there, you knew that he was going to the house. You knew he got dropped off there. You knew he had one shoe. You knew he had no coat. And you didn't think that it could be in that house. And he says, no, that's just not being honest. I mean, that's absurd. Now, whether you think you should go in the house or not, but how can you seriously say that, knowing that he was going there and he ends up 30 feet outside with one shoe and no winter clothes on, dead on the lawn, that it doesn't even occur to you that maybe something was going on in the house? Or when he said, cocktail glasses or something that are frequently found in a house. Well, a bar too. He's trying too hard.
yeah. A couple questions came in. This is a good one. Any chance the feds are orchestrating this trial for the purpose of nailing down witness testimony, allowing them to perjure themselves? Lally's turning every one of his witnesses into a defense witness.
I would really hope that the federal government is not allowing Karen Reed to sit through a show trial where she's like, a public spectacle, like a caged animal in a zoo for people to watch because they want to develop further evidence. I think that would be immoral. Now, does it help them ultimately? Yes, they're gathering more evidence. So in a sense, the trial does help the feds with whatever they're still investigating, but it would be really disturbing if they were doing that to gather evidence to let her sit through that. That to me is wrong. If I don't think they're doing that, I don't know the answer, but I'd like to believe they're not literally doing that. But I do believe that they are gathering more evidence, and they gave powerful evidence to the defense. So what they think about this case going forward. Okay. When the federal government hands over 3,000 pages of powerful evidence to a defendant on trial for murdering a police officer against what the prosecutor wants, that is literally the equivalent of 2 long extended middle fingers in the face of the DA. So
There you go.
they clearly know something that they strongly believe this case should not go forward. And that would scare the hell out of me if I were any of these witnesses who are, mixed up in that, any of the police officers, and frankly, any of the prosecutors.
Free Karen Reed 2024 says, I'd love to see the defense call a network guy from AT&T to rip apart Tully's testimony.
I don't even know how he was allowed to give that kind of test. What kind of expert is he? Because he took a course in cell phone cell sites. I mean, there's a lot of debate on whether it requires an expert. I've been involved in those arguments before, but one of the things that about this case, which is another example of just how ridiculous it is, Tully is multifaceted. He is the lead supervisor, of this group. He's a cell phone expert, and then he moonlights as Dr. Tully by, diagnosing injuries with his subordinates, Dr. Urey and Dr. Proctor. And the jury has got to be thinking, where is the medical examiner? Why do you keep calling state police officers, troopers, trying to tell us what the injuries are? I wouldn't have had him try to testify too much about expertise about cell phones. He clearly got tripped up on that, although he was trying to push back, as he said, although he did admit that the cell phone could not go, 135,000 miles an hour. But also, he fights over things where they have a map. I didn't see this because I was driving, but I can visualize it. I mean, I heard what I heard, where they're showing the cell tower and the distance to McCabe's house and the distance to Albert's house. And it was clearly much closer to McCabe's house. And I think by the end of the analysis, it was more than, more than half closer to McCabe's, and he would not call that significantly closer. And they're just fighting over nonsense. And I guess the point Jackson was trying to make, that it would make more sense to ping off the tower if he's closer to McCabe's house. But to tell you the truth, I don't even understand what the big deal is about, where she's driving around at this or that. I mean, it's kind of a bigger deal that there's no library video. Do you know what I mean? Like, so again, I don't know what they think they're accomplishing with any of this stuff.
The comment here says, I think it's pretty telling we have Proctor's text, but not any of the higher ups. I can't imagine FBI only got Proctor's text and gave up there.
I don't know. I mean, apparently none of the messages were sent to Tully. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think they would have gotten the text messages of everybody on those chains. So Yuri's, DeCiccio or whatever his name is.
DeCiccio, yeah.
All of those people. I mean, I would definitely believe that they would do that. But I mean, at some point, it's not an Orwellian novel. At some point, they stop records. I mean, how many levels of, well, he called him, so let's get his records and his. And I mean, at some point, the connect the dots ends. And I don't know that they would literally keep going beyond the people who are recipients.
Good point. And I don't think this includes many more either. I don't think like the colonel of the vast state police is involved in this.
I don't think they would have sent it to Tully. Yeah. Look at him. Whatever he is, he's like a serious guy.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, he says he reprimanded him, but Proctor said, well, not really. So who knows?
I think there's some like obviously cultural issues. There's something wrong with the state police. Like, what kind of reforms do you think that could fix this kind of toxic culture that's obviously over there?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, you have to just fumigate the Norfolk DA's office and their state police liaisons. They're probably corrupt, certainly incompetent, and possibly both, which is a pretty deadly, toxic combination. There appears to be a lot of misogyny involved, a lot of unprofessional conduct, a lot of ignoring basic investigative leads, bullying medical examiners to get what you need. So to me, if it's pervasive in that office, then there's a very simple solution. Fumigate it, start over, get new people, better hiring, better training. But certainly, Proctor should go. And let's be honest, Urey should be fired too. And these other guys on the text messages, they haven't testified yet. We'll see. But they're awful. And their office, they turn out of the DA's office, which is interesting. Maybe they ought to reevaluate that close of a relationship about why the state police are literally embedded in the DA's office. But I mean, the simple answer is just get rid of the bad people. And if the local office is loaded with bad people, then kick them all out.
Yeah. Now, I've noticed some of the Mass State Police people who are like the scientists, let's say, the lab people, a lot of them look pretty good. Like I don't know all the details about them, but just looking at them, a lot of them look younger. I see a lot of females, but when you look at these detectives and the troopers, it seems like it's all these male jugheads. Like maybe they need more women. Like I don't know. It just seems to me like I haven't seen any detective women up there yet for the Mass State Police. I just wonder if that's one of the issues too.
Could be. I don't recall just by memory any women in the Norfolk, state police liaisons offices. Certainly none that are working on this, and obviously, not surprisingly, none of them were copied on those text messages if they were. But they just need better people. Man,
Yeah,
woman, whatever.
exactly.
Just get someone who's honest, competent, and doesn't send text messages about women's bodies, illegal searches, bullying medical examiners, and wishing death by suicide upon people they arrest. I mean, I don't think asking to hire people who don't do that, I don't think is a big ask.
Absolutely. Another comment about Tully, like, but some of the things that he said, not 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 very scientific.
You can tell that he's a much more competent officer than the other ones. But again, he was trying too hard, too rigid, and just get back to the lack of preparation. Did he think it was helpful yesterday to say that we're basically a paramilitary organization?
Yeah, that was
I mean,
crazy.
what that the jury, that no good, like no bueno. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to hear that you people who the defense are accusing of being a bunch of corrupt meathead Neanderthals who all come in with like shaved heads, brag about being a paramilitary organization. I mean, the optics of this are just, you need a more sensitive approach than that, I think.
I appreciate the honesty on that because I think that there is something with that. Like the head of the Mass State Police is called the colonel. They call them state troopers, like they're
Yeah.
stormtroopers. I mean, there is something in that culture
No,
that
I'm
is
not
like
saying it's
paramount.
untrue.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's actually, look what's going on. It appears to be true, but I don't think bragging about that is
it's
perhaps the
helpful. Yeah,
best,
helpful on that stand.
particularly in a case where you're accused of, falsely arresting a woman who asserts her innocence, and you're accused of planting innocent evidence against her and doing other things. I'm not sure I'd be, saying we are a
Paramilitary. Yeah,
military organization who's, very effective at, fixing illegal searches and finding illegal evidence. It's probably not a good idea.
definitely not. I mean, I appreciate it because it helps the defense, and I also appreciate it because I think that people need to hear the truth, but it's definitely not helpful for the
No,
prosecution.
no.
Um, yeah, wait for Maza Media. Hopefully he shows up because he was there at court today. Maza's supposed to be here tonight. This is
So
your up. Well, go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, so tomorrow I'm going to court.
Oh boy. You
So
let it out of the bag. You let it out. I wasn't sure you were going to say that.
I'm going.
Attorney, did everyone hear that? Attorney Bederow is going down tomorrow,
So
down to court.
I'm curious to just get a look at the jury and see how they react to what's going on. Be very interesting.
People are freaking out in the chat. They're like, "Oh my god, hell yeah, awesome!" Everyone's happy.
Well, I'm hoping for a nice day in court, and then, of course, later that night to be in town when they're celebrating a championship. So that would be nice.
Oh, that would be nice. So is that the same as the game on tomorrow night? Is that it?
Tomorrow
Is it
night, if they win, that's it.
that'll be game 4.
That's it. No, yeah, they're champs if they win.
And that's this game's in Dallas, right?
This game is in Dallas.
So So yeah, we'll see. Oh, look who's here too. Maza Media just popped up.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good. We just broke
How
some
are
news.
ya?
We're breaking a lot of news and crushing it tonight. Did you hear the announcement about Attorney Bederow?
Oh, I know about it. I already have insider info. I have all kinds of insider information. I'll put it this way. I've known about Mr. Bederow's whereabouts since about noontime this morning. I had some insider sources today tip me off.
You're
So
tracking him. You're
I
tracking
know
him.
exactly where he is and where he's going, and I have a feeling, a hunch where he may be tomorrow. So
Are
Well,
you
he
part
just
of a
announced.
Are you part of a paramilitary organization? You see a lot
yeah,
about me.
well, not the Massachusetts State. No, I'm just kidding.
CIA. He's the
Yeah,
CIA. That's why he doesn't
yeah.
show his face.
There was a leak. I got some leaked information sent my way about the whereabouts, and I'm like, ah, yes, I know exactly where he's going. So that's good. Apparently there was some guy in court today that looked like me. Apparently everyone was saying it was Maza. It actually was me. Shocking. So
It-
that was awesome.
You were on TV too.
I was on TV. Yeah, it was awesome. So it was great. I was just on with Brian LTL with Jess Machado and Brandy Churchwell, and I just thank Jess Machado because I was planning on getting up at 6:30 this morning, leaving at 7, and getting there for about 8:15. And she posted a photo of all the traffic yesterday when she was trying to get to court, and I said, you know what? Let's get up at 5:30. Let's leave at 6. Got in there for about 7:00. Went out, had breakfast. I had a nice big breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts, which I never usually eat at, but I did that. Got out, hung out with all my fellow Free Karen Reed supporters, which was awesome. Got to see Dr. Turtleboy rally the base before the real show got started in court, and talked to Tommy. Got to see Tommy. It was awesome out there. First thing this morning. I had never been out there before court. I've been outside of court before, but not before court starts. It was absolutely awesome. And the courtroom is definitely disorientating when you first walk into it, because it's when you're sitting in that seat looking towards the stand and Auntie Bev's high chair, you are seeing it from a totally different angle. It's like the opposite angle. It's like instead of north south, it's east west. It's just totally different, and it's wild being in there. It's like, and I swear, like, she looked at me a few times, and I'm like, does she know, like, I'm Maza Media and I'm calling her Auntie Bev? Does she know? I'm like, no, nah, my head's playing with me. But there was an individual in court today when I was sitting in my seat, and that individual walked in and took a seat. And about 5 minutes into the court proceedings, I felt this evil, sinister, incredible gaze coming from the left of my vision. And I turned and looked, and you can guess who was staring a hole through me. And I kind of looked a minute, and then I looked for like a quick glance, and I said, oh man, this dude's staring at me right now. I guess don't look back. Don't just let him do what he's got to do. But yeah, that happened this morning.
I'm trying to figure
And
out who you're talking about.
sarcasm.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like who you talking about? Do you
They're
know,
dumping
Mark?
it. They're dumping it in the comments right now. Yeah.
I have a guess, but I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at the comments
They're
because
guessing in the
I'm
comments
clueless.
right now. Yeah. So yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
he stared a hole through me, and I haven't had someone stare at me like that in a long time. Probably going back to high school or college when people used to be conflicted. But yeah, I don't. He would have not have known who I was, but I think he just saw me on that particular side of things and looked at me and was like, he glared at me. It kind of set off like that, not a nervous reaction, but like an alert reaction in your body. You know, like you just feel like a change in your body chemistry for like a quick second where you're like alerted to something. It was kind of like I felt like that rush in my body, like, whoa, kind of like that. I was like, what's going on? So that happened. That happened this morning, and that's the only time it happened. Everything else was fine the rest of the day. There was no negative interactions with anybody on that side, but that was just a quick sinister stare, basically, that I received this morning. So I'm going to report on that because it just wasn't called for, but I understand that individual's perspective is what it is, and he sees people on this side for however he feels they are. I disagree, and most of us disagree, but yeah, it was just I was like, wow, he's really looking at me. I go, did he not see me stand up and see I'm 6'5" and can handle myself pretty well, but that's all right. I'm just joking. But yeah, he stared at me like that, and I was just like, whoa, okay. But no issues with him the rest of the day, which was fine. But like I said, one thing about conflict is I usually will, when someone stares at me, I'll stare back. In this particular case, I reminded myself, I kind of prepared myself before I went to court for that, just to say if there's any kind of anybody confronting you from another side, just just turn, just walk away, don't engage, don't say anything, don't get in any kind of interaction, spats, disagreements, debates, anything like that. If you run into somebody in the bathroom, just move on. Just kind of maintain, because it's important to remember, yes, I went to court today. Yes, I was there. Yes, I sat in a seat, but I'm not there on my own terms. I mean, I'm not there on my own. I'm not there on Maza Media terms. I'm there on Karen Reed and Karen Reed's family's terms. I am a guest, and I have to make sure that I'm at all times maintaining a level of candor and appropriateness that is respectful and in line with the vision of the Reed family and the defense. And that's one thing I always reminded myself today, because sometimes, like as an outsider, like when I watch the court cases, and I hear Lally object, like I'll sit here and go, "Oh, of course, I'll get negative. I'll go, I'll react, right?" And I just kind of mentally train myself
not to do
yesterday, just
that.
to get in that habit. I'm like, because I'm there on their terms. I got to make sure that I'm in line. I'm a team player with the Reed family and the defense, and making sure, like, whatever, if they're not doing something, I'm not doing it. I'm following them and doing that. And that was the most important thing for me today, was to make sure that I showed that family the utmost respect for the amount of respect that they showed me by inviting me on as a guest today. And I am extremely grateful to the entire Reed family, for the opportunity that they gave me. I would have never expected a year ago, when I first watched Karen Reed on those courthouse stairs with her defense team, preaching for her innocence before a media crowd, and would have never thought that the time would come, where I would take what Maza Media once was, which was a sports show, and refocus it solely around this particular case. And then to have the family give me the amount of respect that they've given me, and the kind things that they all said to me today, and about this show and about the individuals on this show, Mike and Mark, both of you, nothing but great comments about the two of you. And I am so thankful for that. And I'm so, it's like I am so thankful for being invited, but it was so mutual. They were so thankful and humbled that I arrived as well. And it's one of the great things about this whole thing, is that everybody in this whole, free Karen Reed support, every supporter, everyone, it's all about giving to each other. Like, no one is, everybody's giving something to somebody here, and I think that's what's so great about everybody, is everybody's giving. When you see the supporters outside every morning, and Mark, I'll just tell you, it's amazing. And you see these individuals, and the way they come up to you, and the way that they greet you, and the friendliness and the caring and the giving, and just the whole way everybody, I saw it again today and I saw it last month, just the way everybody gathers food, and has breakfast for each other, and has lunch for each other, and water for each other, sharing seats if someone's tired. It's just this total environment. I was thinking today, like I was a basketball player in high school. I was really good. Played in college. I was pretty much a, solid college player. Nothing great, but solid. And I always had fanfare. And I always had people that showed me, love and respect, and all that, playing basketball. And I said today, I'm like, this is the most gratitude I've ever seen from people. And it's just so amazing. And it doesn't have to be, oh, because they know me because I'm Maza Media. These people are showing respect to everyone regardless. It doesn't matter if you have a show, it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's showing everybody respect. Everybody's showing appreciation towards everyone. Doesn't matter if you have a show, doesn't matter if you're this or that or this or that. It doesn't matter. Everyone is equally appreciated. It's a total family of supporters, and it's absolutely incredible. And every time I go, I'm just so, like, I don't want to leave. Like, I'm always like sticking around. I'm always like one of the final 5 to 10 people to leave, I notice. And I'm like, because a lot of people will stay for half the day and take off. But someone goes, Mazda sure loves to hear himself talk. Z's. Okay, with original Mr. Wonderful. Thank you. I do love to hear myself talk. In fact, I will, but that's okay.
You go,
Maz,
Mazda. Don't listen to them.
Maza
You're
Media is
fine.
boring. No, I hear anything but that. But you know, I was completely humbled by this today, and I was so excited. I don't usually ever go to bed before midnight, but I was in bed at 11 o'clock last night. My cat fought me all night long, knocking on the door, trying to break in. He's like, "What the hell are you doing going to bed this early?" I'm like, "I got to go to bed. I got to get up in the morning, buddy." And my cat was cool when I got home. He was happy, but it's I was so excited. I'm like, I couldn't wait for 5:30. I literally always hit. I'm one of those people that hits the snooze button a couple times when I wake up for work in the morning. That alarm clock went off at 5:30. I had it set at 5:30, 5:32, 5:34, 5:36. I'm like, I'm not oversleeping. 5:32, I hit snooze just one time. That was kind of like I need at least one snooze. I did just one snooze today. Got up. It was ready to go. I
There you
woke
go.
up and I'm like, today is the day. I already had all my dress clothes all lined up. I had everything all packed the night before. I was ready to go. I could not wait to hit the road. And when I walked in the courtroom, like I said, it's well, first of all, Karen Reed's parents, these people are so wonderful that sometimes you forget that they're not your aunts. I mean, it's like you think they're your aunts and uncles sometimes. They're so friendly, they're so welcoming. They're such incredible people. They're so wonderful, and I get to meet Karen Reed. I said hi to her last time when she was coming when they were coming back from lunch. I said hi as she passed by, and she kind of said hi back. I get to formally meet her today, and all I'm going to say is this: is Karen and her mother are absolute gems. Her father is an absolute gem. These people are so honest, genuine, sincere, smart, focused individuals. It's absolutely incredible. I was just on Brian's show, and about a half an hour ago, I made the statement on that show that you would never believe in a million years that anyone would ever accuse Karen Reed of killing anybody, because there's just no way Karen Reed would ever kill anybody and murder anybody. It's just, you meet this family. They are such wonderful people. They open up to everybody. And there's just no way that their daughter, Karen, would ever do something like that. And like I said on, earlier tonight, if you believe Karen Reed is innocent, after you meet Karen Reed and you meet her family, you're only going to believe in her innocence more, because that's exactly what happens. Because I mean, you can already tell when you see her that that's a fact, but when you meet them, it just a little bit more, it goes up. It's like, wow, these people are truly wonderful people. And in court today, I did it once around the whole room. Like, I looked at like I saw Jess Machado. She looked at me, she's like, "You're here." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." We didn't even say a word, but that was the nonverbal communication immediately. It was like, she looked at me, she goes, "Mazza," and I go, "How you doing, Jess?" It was all nonverbal, but you could tell that was the communication. It was so funny. We just looked at each other. She gave me a small wave. And I saw Turtle Boy, talked to him this morning briefly. He was in there, and saw members of the media, Sue, and a few other people. And then I looked over to the other side when the jury arrived. I'll tell you about the jury. I'll give you a casual once over. Is that I just shared with Jess that her I took a lot of what Jess said about the jury into my mind, into consideration when I walked into court today. I kind of used Jess's statements about them as my baseline or outline of how I was going to assess them in terms of what she said. And she had very, accurate opinions about certain people on the jury. And my attitude was the same exact as hers. There are certain people on that. First of all, these people on the jury, you always think like it's going to be like just people that are just mysterious walking in and taking these seats. And then when they walk in, it's like, oh, these are just regular people. These are just everyday normal people. I'm not used to that. I've never seen a jury, and I'm like, wow, okay, these are just everyday people. All of the people on the jury, I'll tell you this much: I glanced at them occasionally, once in a while, just briefly, and because the bailiff doesn't want you staring. So occasionally I'd kind of look at one of them here and there throughout the day. They all seem like nice people. They all seem like good people. They all seem like smart people. They all seem like educated people. None of them seem like they're like, oh boy, I can't believe that person's on the jury. It's not like that at all. It's just like, yeah, this seems like if I was in Karen's shoes and that was the jury, I'd feel very good about that jury deliberating with a good, honest, sound verdict. That's how I felt about these particular people. Now, there is one particular individual on that jury. I won't say any details about them other than I'll say this. If this particular juror had known about this story before they had gone on the jury, I would be convinced that they would be just like every one of us right now, a Karen Reed supporter. Because this individual, you can tell just by the way they sour on Adam Lally, just by the way they look at Alan Jackson when they're talking. I could picture that individual, if they'd known about this story 6 months ago, that be they would be someone that would be a part of the support, one of our supporters. They would be among us because they look so overwhelmed by Alan Jackson's cross-examinations that you can tell already. And when I said this about this individual, just said to me, she immediately said, she goes, I already know who you're talking about. And like we said, if there's at least one, then there's a problem delivering a guilty verdict. And I'll tell you, I think there's probably a few others among them. And I think one of the big issues here, and this is what's been said on this show quite a bit over the past couple of weeks, is as Adam Lally has not captivated this jury at all. And I will tell you this much right now. One of the things I noticed about being in the courtroom today is when you're sitting in there, and what I would do is occasionally was I would look at the camera just to see where it was in the courtroom, and I would see just where it was pointing. Was it pointing at the person on the stand? Was it pointing at Karen? Was it maybe nearing partially my direction? I was trying to get a feel for where that camera was
Not Lally.
when yeah, not on Lally, yeah. I was starting to get a feel for where that camera was pointing when certain things were happening in that courtroom. So one of the things I picked up on immediately in this courtroom is that when that thing's on camera, that camera a lot of times is just sitting there and it's not moving. And there's other things happening in the courtroom. When you're sitting there, even though it's a small courtroom, you will start to just pick up on things that are happening. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it right on the air. Everybody in that courtroom, the last hour after lunch, I'll say, was absolutely bored out of their minds when Adam Lally was speaking all afternoon. It was horrible. Now, I want to just emphasize one more time. Everybody in the courtroom was agonizing. Now, everyone includes the defense, Karen's side, the O'Keefe side, the media, the jury, all the people up front, including Madam Court Reporter, and everyone also includes, you guessed it, the judge. She sat there, and I was, and this is stuff you don't see on camera, and I had never seen this before. And I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my goodness, she just sat there like it was like, is it 5 o'clock somewhere? Can I get fried clams at the clam box in Quincy? That's my latest plug. I'm gonna start plugging that as my joke for the whole summer. I'm like, oh my God, I go, Auntie Bev is sitting there right now, and she's like just as bored as we are. I just, it was a totally different perspective I saw of her, and I'm figuring she'd be like all intrigued by Adam Lally, but no, she was sitting there like, I'm with you guys. This guy's boring as hell. I'm like, holy crap.
Is it worse in person? Because watching it on TV, I just want to stab myself in the neck and do anything but listen to him. Is it worse in person?
It is. It is worse in person. I'm going to tell you why. When you watch it in person,
Great.
you can hit the mute button. You can pause it, come back and fast forward. You can shut it off and come back to it later. But when you're in court, you're locked in that room with him. And it just goes and goes and goes. Now, we knew we'd be out by about 3 o'clock today, and he took that 2 to 3 o'clock hour And he just, I mean, he probably could have been done by about, I'd say reasonably, by about 2:45, 2:40, 2:45, which I thought he could have wrapped up by. But he kept going and going and going and going. And it was just nonstop. And I just sat there and I was just, I don't even know if it happened on camera, but I was sitting there like looking up at the sky a couple of times. I was just sitting there like, I can't even listen to this man anymore. He is so abysmal to listen to. It is absolutely horrible. And the problem with him, and this is a general complaint amongst everyone, I'm sure everyone will agree with this. He just, he would be such a better prosecutor if he would just ask like the 5 top things he wants, like maybe like, what's your name? Where do you work? How long have you worked there? You do this. Okay. That's your 4 key questions. Now give me your 4 primary questions, 4 or 5 primary questions. What is it that this person relates to this case? And then that's it. This guy goes on for about 30 questions and I'm just sitting there like, and everyone just kind of stood up after court was over and was just like, that was brutal. That was absolutely brutal. We all just couldn't wait to get the heck out of there. I think, I was kind of happy I didn't have to stay until 4:30 if he was going to continue on, because the defense was just, they were just like, we have no comments for this particular person. It's it's now, here's the thing about the courtroom. Everyone asked me when I got out, they asked me, is it hot in there? And I'll be honest with you, it was hotter outside than it was in the courtroom, shockingly. Like, it was not, I had a t-shirt underneath and a long sleeve shirt, and I didn't sweat the whole time. The only time I did sweat was when I was walking outside to walk in the courthouse. Then my body temperature was adjusting. And then that was about it. But it's interesting. It's I I, I it was just interesting. It's just interesting seeing these people in person, like Tully. It was very intriguing seeing him in person today and just being there and like, wow, like, and then you have like the bailiffs like looking at you occasionally. Like, I'm looking across the room, like a half an hour in, I noticed like the bailiff was looking at me. And then all of a sudden I looked around and I noticed like Auntie Bev was looking right in my direction. I'm like, is there going to be like a move on me in about like 3 minutes where I'm going to get booted out of this place just for sitting here? Like, what's going on? Like, I was a little bit like, I was honestly a little paranoid for a minute there, because the bailiff that's right next to the screen to the right of Auntie Bev was looking right at me. And I'm like, what is he looking at me for? And I don't know what it was, but one of the things I was told is don't look at the O'Keefe's, don't look at the jury. And if you do, keep it extremely brief. So the only time I glanced over at the O'Keefe's was really when they walked in the first time. And then after that, what I was happy about was that the room was actually, even though the room, like they always say, it's smaller than you think, I felt that the room was bigger than I thought it was going to be. Meaning, like, I expected it to be small, but I anticipated it being smaller than it ended up being. So it was a little bit more sizable than I actually predicted it being. Anticipated it being just a little bit smaller, and I was happy that I could get the O'Keefe side out of my peripheral vision, because I just didn't want to, like, when you're sitting around, you kind of like look around the room real quick. I didn't want to accidentally like look over there too much, so I kind of kept that out. And I was happy about that, because I just didn't want to make eye contact with anybody over there, because like I said, I was stared down for a bit, and I just didn't want to get in any kind of interaction. And hello, Kelly Reed, how are you doing? Love Kelly Reed. Kelly Reed's awesome. And but that's it. Like I said, the defense is awesome. I didn't have much time to talk to them. They're extremely busy, and I wanted to just respect for them when they're doing this, it's game time. It's like Super Bowl Sunday. They're in the middle of a game, they're in the middle of a battle, and when they talk amongst themselves, even if you're outside with them or wherever else, like, I just don't want to engage with them and even say, hi, hello, my name's so and so, unless they talk to me first. Because I feel like, when you have a defense team like this that's dealing with an extremely important case, it's important that I felt just to let them kind of just, gather amongst themselves and do their thing. And they're so well prepared, and they do such a great job, and they're just awesome. And the family, like I said, Kelly might have not have heard this if she was here, but the Reed family is awesome. Forever grateful for this opportunity. And like I said, they seem just as thankful to have me there as I was pleased to be invited there. And I just feel like for me, this has been, it's like I always say, I used to talk about other things on my YouTube station, and decided to started talking on X about this case, and I could have talked about anything, and I decided to talk about this. And this was a case that I just, someone goes, Mazda caught a case of the lally at court. Has been talking on and on to no end.
Yeah.
The comments
He's
here today.
excited tonight. Let him
Yeah,
be
I'm excited.
excited.
I got a big story to tell. But no, it's the the family is just so wonderful to you, and the way they treat you, and the defense team's so awesome, and they're all doing a great job, and it's really just awesome to watch them, and then also kind of be able to just kind of walk with them and everything, and kind of walk in with them. And for me, on a personal basis, one of my favorite moments that kind of related to me was when I was walking in with Mrs. Reed, and we were walking in together, and I heard people saying Maza and Maza and Maza. What's going on, man? Everyone getting all fired up when I was walking in. I was really liking that. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Everyone's kind of, cheering me on a little bit too, which is cool. Not that I'm there for the cheers and all that, but it was kind of cool to kind of see people giving me a shout out. This means a lot to me. This case, it's like I said, it's something that by choice I've decided to discuss, and I've decided to personalize and fight for and dedicate my time to. There's so much of my personal life that I've set aside for this. um there's a lot of my friends that say we don't hear from you as much anymore, because to me this is so important, and I've never had something outside of like sports or work or anything like that ever really kind of take up the time I dedicate to this. But for me, I just feel such a call in my own mind to really just push for Karen Reed's innocence and back her up and support her family. And not only that, like I said before, when people were going after Jess Machado from the Fall River Reporter, I was defending her. When people were coming after you, Mike, months back, I was defending you. I felt like a need to always defend everybody. And I always said, I'm gonna be whatever I need to be to help out here. If I need to report things, fine. If I need to cut videos for everybody and put it on my page so people can see it, fine. If I need to come on shows, fine. I'll do whatever it takes. And I just want us to, Karen to win and be victorious. And I told her today, I'm going to always back you up and always fight for you and do anything I can. And whether it's in a big way, a little way, or no way at all, I'm just going to continue to push, 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 and help out in any way I can and contribute. And that's that. But yeah, I'm very excited today. So I'm talking a lot today. But it was for me, this is when I look back at this whole thing, in the years to come, this will probably be one of the biggest days, that I ever personally experienced. Other than, maybe Karen's, not guilty verdict, but this will always be like a personal day for me, and it's a huge story for me to tell. And I just felt like, for me, I really felt like my voice was heard, and I was really thankful that, I'm thankful to everybody. I'm thankful to everyone that's followed me, listened to me on this channel, and many people knew who I was. And it just makes me feel grateful, because my goal was to just push and push and push to get people to know that Karen Reed's innocent, and to study that and understand why. And for me, I just felt so like, you know, um, victorious today, just because I felt like my voice was heard, and my voice has been being heard. Not to say it hasn't been, but I just felt like
Yeah, we got
it. Yeah,
6,000 people watching right now.
yeah, no, I know, yeah, exactly. But like I said, it's just meant a lot to me for a long time, and I just never thought I'd ever have this honor that I had today, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful for it. And God bless the Karen Reed and her family, and I'm going to continue this fight, and I'm never going to give up, and I'm just going to continue to push. So I'll just end it there. So I probably could talk for another hour, but
Let's
all
get
right, yeah.
Bederow back in here. Bederow, what do you think, Mr. Bederow, Attorney Bederow? You have any comments, questions, or do you want to bring anything else up?
No, I mean, it'll be interesting, I think, just to see the dynamic. I mean, obviously, I live in courtrooms, so it doesn't impact me that way, but I'm
Right.
most interested in just seeing the particular reactions of the jurors, which is something we do all the time. We stare at them, and I don't know that I'm not going to look at them. I mean, that's kind of the reason you want to be there. As far as people on the other side, again, there, when you do this for a living, you desensitize. You see it all the time. You go into a courtroom in a murder case, and on this side are the deceased family, and on this side are the defendant's family, and it's always inherently intense. It's just by nature. But I guess the weird thing about this courtroom is that they're looking at each other. It's just bizarre. Usually they're kind of side by side, and a more traditional courtroom. This thing looks like a closet that's been outfitted with some dated furniture more than anything else. But it'll be interesting. Hopefully there'll be interesting testimony. I have no idea what's on tap for tomorrow, so I'm hoping it'll
Maybe
be
the medical examiner.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. That, or even, it's probably boring for a lot of people, but I would find, believe it or not, the Celebrate guy fascinating for the simple reason, even though it's boring testimony, I really want to hear a prosecutor ask an employee of Celebrate why his product is unreliable. I just find that fascinating.
Seriously, that is very good. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, and I'm laughing too, what you were saying about all the people outside cheering and this and that. And I just come from such a different world. I'm used to, for the last couple of months, the only people we got outside the courthouse in Manhattan are the kooks that were there for Trump or against him, either side. And, one day we even had a guy light himself to death, if you follow the news, right outside the courthouse, a month ago, where a guy was protesting and decided the smart thing to do would be to set himself on fire and killed himself because of Trump. So it'll be more interesting to see maybe more civil and normal people outside of a courthouse.
Now, I just brought up the medical examiner. Thinking about something about the 3 DNA profiles that you brought up earlier. Do you think that might come up with her? Like, asking her maybe, did you know about the 3 DNA profiles in the blood? And if, would that have affected your...
No, because again, it has nothing to do with, she's analyzing the injuries. Could you bring it up? My first reaction would be no, but my second reaction, now that I think about it, given her kind of ridiculous addendum about, we don't know what happened, but not from a fight, certainly 3 distinct DNA profiles contained in blood on your pants. And it just bears repeating. If that was from a car accident, then all that blood had to be from the impact or coming out of his nose, face, head, whatever. And it's hard to fathom how there could be 3 people's blood or 3 people's DNA at all of any variety in his bloody pants, unless there's 3 people doing something. It's kind of a basic common sense point. And to me, I know I'm repeating myself, but I found that to be just shocking to hear. And the devastating point is the no follow-up. That is devastating to the DA trying to defend the integrity of the investigation. That is just hideous police work.
Excellent. Do you have any comment on any of that, Maza?
No, I'm honestly, I hate to get personal with some of the people in the comments, but just some of the negative reaction I got to the past couple minutes I spent talking. It's just like, I don't want to hear that.
Don't listen.
Yeah,
to that.
I know. No, I know. But it's just like, honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, folks, just,
don't listen.
what are we in here for? We're here to free Karen Reed.
There's some people here who are just here for their reasons. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And a lot of them are new people too. They don't even know what's going on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I had to say something. I'm like, geez,
No,
man, I've had a long day. I'm like, I've been up since like 5:30. I'm like, man, I got to read these comments. I'm like, come on, folks. But thank you to everyone that gave me a shout. I love you all. Free Karen.
Yeah, and a lot of people love you, so don't worry about it. Yeah, it's kind of late today. 10:19. Is there anything else that we should be talking about, Mr. Bederow?
Somebody was asking about the taillight pieces, that the math on the taillight pieces. That was interesting. It certainly makes Tully look like a dope, incompetent. So it has value in that sense. I wouldn't make too much of a deal out of it. And I think, what did he do? He speculated that the taillight just broke itself in the evidence bag. I mean, that's kind of hard to believe, but I didn't read too much into that, other than any chance you can get to discredit him or say that he's not reliable or whatever it is. It certainly doesn't hurt, but I mean, to me, that wasn't that big a deal.
So what's the question? And
I love you guys too. Love you guys all. Love all you guys. Thank you guys. Love you guys.
Question came through. What does the actual death certificate say due to means and cause?
Well, I don't know, but if the autopsy report says undetermined, then presumably that's what it says, unless they modified it, which of course would lead to much cross-examination about why that happened and who got to you and this and that. So it's a mess for them. And, you know, some people were speculating today, well, maybe they're just not going to call the medical examiner. No chance. If they do not call the medical examiner, this case will get dismissed on a defense motion, even by this judge who a lot of you think is corrupt and whatnot, for the simple reason that if they can't establish a cause and manner of death and don't even have medical testimony to say that his injuries are consistent with being hit by a car, then they haven't even established a prima facie case and it would be dismissed. They can't use Dr. Urey and Dr. Proctor for that. That's not appropriate. It's not real evidence. So the medical examiner will testify, no question, or else it's getting tossed.
Excellent. Good comments coming in from Dublin, Ireland. Thank you so much, Karen. Lola had a comment about, she said, funny how Lally said to Proctor about Kevin Albert, you don't know his address. That's how close you are, right? Allie McCabe testified she and Colin were best friends and that she didn't know his address. Did she? I don't remember that.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
if you go out and get wasted with a guy drunk driving in the cruiser and, you know, so you get so wasted that guns disappear and badges and whatnot, that's pretty friendly outing. So
Yeah, especially right before you said you only knew Chris and Julie.
well, that's
And
precisely.
you left out Colin, and then you got reminded, oh yeah, Colin too.
I mean,
And then Kevin, who you got
question
wasted
was,
with.
you know, do you know him? I
Yeah.
mean, that's knowing is, you know, can be anything. Certainly if you go out and get wasted and lose guns in a vehicle, that would be knowing someone. That was pathetic.
Kimmy said, could they pick this up as a cold case? I mean, I think that's what we hope after the DA replace, maybe.
The only chance that they're ever going to solve, you know, the crime, whether anyone gets prosecuted or not, is if the feds start leaning on low-level people who have a lot to lose, who are not traditional criminals and are terrified, and they give up whatever they know, big or little. And if that turns out to be credible and leads to other things, and that's the only way. And even then, who knows where it goes. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're ever going to just solve the crime if everyone in the house has nothing to say. So that's the only shot, is that you know, feds shaking the tree, something falls out.
Yeah, because all the evidence is gone. They didn't investigate. So that's the problem now.
Well, that's going to be a big problem, because even if they do get testimony from people, they're not going to have any physical evidence. They're not going to have any real evidence. Now, could you get testimony that explains the lack of physical evidence, such as, you know, could somebody say they ripped up the basement floor and, you know, put a dead dog down there and bloody this? I mean, I'm not assuming that happened. I have no idea, obviously, but, you know, they could try that. But you're not going to have a traditional murder case. You're not going to have any forensic evidence. You're not going to have anything other than people who presumably, by the way, at least at one time, all lied. In other words, every single person who was in the house that night, to a man and woman, has denied knowing anything, every single one. So if any of those ultimately get flipped, then they would be contradicting their sworn testimony in this case. And then if you hypothetically, you know, pick one of these people as a hypothetical defendant, just say Brian Albert, Brian Albert is going to get a lawyer. It's going to get a real lawyer. And these witnesses are going to be subject to pretty heavy cross-examination if it turns out that they claim a story now but said the exact opposite thing under oath in this current trial. So even then, it's going to be real tough to prosecute anyone for this kind of stuff, as opposed to possibly obstruction, perjury, those kind of process type crimes, as they call them.
Microdots has a question about how
You-
do you think the medical examiner might be preparing for her testimony?
Contemplating a career switch and running away. I honestly, the medical examiner is I wouldn't want to be her, because number one, and I'm not a doctor, so who am I to, challenge? No, I'm just saying I
No,
can't.
I'm saying it's good that you realize that, because Yuri doesn't.
Right, I can't go toe to toe on medical terms or anything like that. But what I do have, and what most people have, is just a wee bit of common sense without the medical degree part of it. And even without all this other stuff in the background, it seems like a hard sell to say that this is consistent with a car injury, when even Proctor, he already told you, I don't know if you picked this up the other day when he was getting cross-examined, that when he saw John O'Keefe's body, he said there were no bruises, no fractures on, the trunk area. And from what I'm told, if the theory is the taillight, which it has to be, obviously, the taillight on a car like that is
Like
what,
midsection.
4
Midsection.
feet,
Yeah.
3 feet off the ground. John
You think,
O'Keefe
you
was
think maybe rib area.
okay. So John
Right?
O'Keefe was what, 6 feet? They said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Stomach
somewhere,
to rib, somewhere in
abdomen,
that.
trunk,
Yeah.
almost like the strike zone in
Or the
baseball.
hip. Yeah, exactly.
And he has no injuries there. And, I don't think you're going to be able to say that the hit on the back of the head
Yeah.
matches a taillight. Is it consistent with hitting a curb or whatever? I don't know what she's going to say. But so already you just look at the evidence and say, how does this make sense? But then you have a simple thing where she said, I can't determine a manner of death. I can't determine a cause of death. She could certainly be asked what that means and what is the definition of a homicide. And all that is, person A caused the death of person B. Doesn't even have to be a crime. That you self-defense. If you shoot someone and kill them, it's homicide. It may be justifiable homicide. She couldn't do that. She didn't classify it as an accident. That's another type of classification. So in essence, she said, I don't know. I can't tell from this evidence. And then somehow, some way, she came up with the idea that but it's not from a fight. We've always talked about this even before we heard the ridiculous text messages yesterday that we all knew what happened. We talked about this. The cops got to her and said, what about this? What about that? But now you have it in writing. So now, if you're the defense, you have a good faith basis to really drill down on, let's talk about the conference calls you had with Yuri and Proctor. And what did they tell you? What pictures did they show you? Tell us, and you said no, right? It wasn't that in the text. So even with all that, you still said, I can't classify it. So then the question then becomes, if she can't classify it now, and she says, I don't know, and I don't know if these injuries are consistent with anything that you're describing, well, then the case still might get dismissed on a motion because they won't establish
Cause
what
of death. Yeah. Well, how it happened.
they need to establish. And the other thing is, the defense does have an expert who really serves two functions. Not only are they going to call the expert to just rebut her and say whatever it is that they're going to say, but they're going to use the defense expert to educate them in preparing how to cross-examine her. So they'll whoever it is, whether it's Jackson or Yannetti, will sound like a doctor because they're going to be prepared, and that's what lawyers do when you have experts. You have to get your own expert to tell you what to do and help you understand and explain it. And this ME also is going to be aware that the defense has an expert. And it's Lally, so he probably hasn't prepped her. So maybe my point won't, maybe this isn't a great point, but in the normal case where prosecutors actually prepare for trial, they also will, if they have a report from the defense expert, they're going to show it to their expert. and say, what do you say about this? Is this, and I just get the feeling that she's got to be dreading this because,
Yeah, I can imagine.
I don't know how she's going to be in position to tell you anything about the arm injuries, anything about, the lack of impact injuries. I think she's going to say, I don't really know where the head injury came from. Maybe it's this. I wouldn't want to be her because I think it's going to be embarrassing.
And I wonder if they'll bring up the text messages about her.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because if nothing else, I mean, they're not going to show her the text messages because, I mean, you can't really impeach her. She didn't have
Or
anything
what
to
he
do.
said. Yeah. Yeah.
But what the text messages do is
The
educate the
pressure.
lawyer to say not only the pressure, but like they talked about, we had 2 specific meetings with her. We sent her pictures. We did this. So you can ask her about those meetings, what was said, what was done. What did they tell you? Were you uncomfortable? Why didn't you do what they wanted you to do? And who knows what they told her?
Exactly.
And they can ask, did you take notes during this meeting?
Yeah. Hopefully she
I
did.
would ask for it. What
Yeah.
pictures did they show you?
Was there a recording of the meeting? Sometimes they might record things. Who knows? Right?
Whatever it is. And I just think she's going to come off, unfortunately for her, just kind of like another one of these witnesses who's trying to stick the square peg in the round hole, except she said, I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah. At least she stuck to that.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't go to the other extreme. Um, yeah, a lot of comments coming in. France Mark says, "How about getting DNA samples from the people in the house matched to the blood on the jeans?" That's what we were saying earlier. I mean, absolutely, right?
You can be sure in the summation when they get to the part about the tunnel vision and how they had their girl, as he kept saying, and you can use the text messages, you can use what Proctor said, you can use what Tully said, whatever else there is. What a jury will understand is that the defense has theorized that John O'Keefe was beat up and he's got blood on the front of his pants that appears to be a mixture of three, well, not appears, is a mixture containing 3 people's DNA. The car does not have DNA. Nobody believes that there's a transfer DNA from the car that ended up in his pants or anything like that. And again, they don't have to prove anything. They have to put it out there to say this could have been something. And even if it never led to anything, they never even bothered to try, even though it was staring them right in the face. And they're going to bring up Colin's knuckles, and they're going to bring up how they didn't want to look at McCabe's phone, all this stuff. They'll marshal it together and say that the fix was in because, we're going to get that whack job, go back to the text, all that. It's going to be devastating for them. Devastating.
Another question came in. Do you think the Commonwealth will try to say the other DNA came from the floor of the hospital or ambulance?
They can say whatever they want, but we go back to the problem. They're the ones speculating, and they're the ones with the burden of proof. I don't know. Maybe that's even true. Who knows? Probably not. But also, first of all, hospitals are generally sterile places. They clean. All right. When you come into a
Yeah.
emergency room with
It's
a
not blood on
patient,
the floor. Yeah.
who is either dead or in the process of possibly dying, generally speaking, one hopes that the orderlies or whoever have cleaned the room. But if the DA, who has to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense has a theory that there was an attack by multiple people, there's multiple people's DNA, blood on him. And if the prosecution's best response is, well, maybe it came from the floor of the hospital or ambulance, then what Lally needs to do tomorrow after court is pack up his bag, put all his books and papers, his 8 inches of paper, walk out of the courtroom and never come back. Because if that's your best argument, don't even bother showing up.
Yeah. And I when I was a financial advisor, I used to go into these hospitals all the time with the employees, Shriners Burn Center, especially.
Yeah.
They all have housekeeping staff. They all have people cleaning up those rooms immediately. So
it's a hospital. I mean, it's cleanest.
Cleanliness is a big thing.
Yeah.
It's like and those housekeeping staff, they get trained to it's not just like
No, it's
it's not like cleaning hotel rooms. This is infectious disease
Yeah, they
and
have
all that
diseases.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, they're not going to make this argument. I mean, look, they're going to ignore it, and they're going to just kind of, in their summation, roll their eyes and try to say that there's nothing going on. But again, if the defense is raising credible arguments, which at least are plausible and at least could be true, and then have the added bonus, if nothing else, of showing that the cops didn't even try, it just shows that they are disengaged, uninterested, or worse, possibly corrupt.
Possibly.
Well,
Almost certainly.
We're being careful tonight. I mean, I think most of us think, obviously. Kamala Norris says, Mark, Mike, did you hear Tully say I could see the impression of the words from the taillight on John O'Keefe's skin? And then the person laughed because I think they don't believe Tully on that. What did you hear that? I didn't hear that.
No.
No.
He did not say that.
I wouldn't. I mean, I think they're joking then.
That's got to be. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be embarrassing.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, but who knows? I mean, Tully said some stuff today. He's kind of soft spoken too. Like for me, when Tully was speaking, I was walking a lot of dogs, so it's very difficult if I'm not in the car at that point to hear every word.
I think it would be a big deal, and everybody would be talking about if a witness said with a straight face that I saw like taillight impressions in his skin. That I think that was a joke.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for stumping us. Stumping me, not the attorney. Kamala Norris, I guess. Yes. Thank you so much. What are your final thoughts tonight? We'll go to Maza Media since I think it's a little bit early, but we're late. It's 10:37. So
It's been a long day for me. I've been going nonstop all day, getting up early, and also 2 shows tonight. So that's awesome to do 2 shows and be a part of a great audience and everything tonight as well. So thank you to everybody commented positively to me. But let's get to Tully. I mean, the guy was lying through his teeth at times, and he knew that Alan Jackson knew that he was BSing him. The guy was arguing and fibbing all these directions and everything about everything, semicircles, all that, all morning long. And I just saw Alan Jackson look at him and him look back at Alan Jackson. It was just like right on the tip of Tully's tongue. It was like, I know this guy's got me. I could tell. I could see it. Could just see it. But great work by the defense today. And basically, how many witnesses was Adam Lally going to call today that the defense didn't even have questions for because these witnesses just weren't really worth the time of the defense at all? And just numerous times, we have no questions for this witness. We have no questions. Lally's just up there acting like he's trying to make some kind of point with some of these witnesses, and they're getting up there and they're saying what they got to say, and then the defense is like, let's just move on, Lally. You're dead in the water. It's 3-0 in the series right now. Banner 18's coming home. It's just this is not. It's a case that's dead on arrival. And furthermore, the lead is so high right now. I mean, basically, the prosecution hasn't even put points up on the board yet in this whole trial. It's an absolute blowout. Touchdown after touchdown, 3-pointer after 3-pointer, goal after goal in this trial. And he just gets up there. He makes no point. The jury today, many people in the courtroom look confused at what point he was even trying to make. He just is not getting through to this jury because there is no case to make. None at all. If Karen Reed is factually innocent, we know she's factually innocent. There's nothing there that they ever bring up, the prosecution that is, that in any way incriminates Karen at all. There's just nothing there. They have nothing. You look at Michael Proctor. There's a plethora of information that suggests that he was involved in a cover-up. The text messages, everything that he was communicating negatively about Karen is more than enough evidence that this investigator was not an investigator that was doing a proper job, that took sides, that had a negative opinion and negative comments about Karen. And that's all he did. The comments that he made were an absolute disgrace. And I'll leave it there.
Awesome. I just got to say, Maz, I got a lot of Venmo donations shouting you out.
Oh, awesome. There we go.
I
Yeah,
got
awesome.
several. I'm going to read them off at the end
Yeah.
of the show, but you might want to listen because a lot of them are
Nice.
showing a lot of love for you.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm really tired, really fatigued, and I just was like, oh man, I'm like, so
They're like
battling to do
this
two
one. Here's
shows.
a super chat that
Yeah,
just came from Maureen. She said, "Love you, three wonderful men. Go get them, Mark."
awesome.
You know, they never should have brought this case. We've said this before again and again. This is completely a show trial, an exercise in absurdity. It's costing the taxpayers God knows how much money. It is destroying whatever was already left of the reputation of the Norfolk County DA's office. It has absolutely gutted the credibility of the Massachusetts State Police and probably cost at least one, possibly more, trooper his job, if not, God knows what comes after that. The guy is so dedicated to seeing Karen Reed get convicted, which was never going to happen anyway, that he stupidly agreed to testify when he shouldn't have. All of these other guys are saying things that just don't make any sense. Even when they try with DNA evidence, all it does is help the defense theory. Nothing they do is right. And they've known what the evidence is for all this time. This is not a surprise to them. They built the case. They know what it is. They know what everybody said. And most surprisingly, they know what the feds were doing. They know that these witnesses got hauled in, and they know that the feds gave the defense and the DA 3,000 pages or whatever it is, of material, which only happens when they are trying to send you a message. You're not being fair. You're not doing the right thing. And we feel compelled in the interest of justice to let the defense be aware of this. So we're going to do this. And they continue to ignore. They continue to, just run headfirst into the brick wall over and over. And it's so obvious where this is going. But the real point is this case is going to end. She's going to walk out. She's going to be rich from all this when this is all said and done. But all of these people, the bad actors in this case, from Morrissey to Lally to Proctor to the other state troopers, potentially to the Alberts, the Higgins, all these people, they're all going to be in much worse legal position when this case is over than they were if anybody decided, yeah, we're not doing this. Even if they were going to bury this and let a true perpetrator get away with it, by coming after her and they're exposing all of this, all they're doing is putting themselves in further legal trouble. God knows where it ends, but all they had to do was look in the mirror and say, this is wrong. We're not going to do it. But they're so power hungry. They're so corrupt. They're probably so stupid that they did it anyway. And, you're starting to think they're all going to pay a price for it. And it's just, we talked about the train going over the cliff and you can see it. And you want to tell them, stop. And there's plenty of time to stop it. And they just don't. And they're getting closer and closer to the cliff. I mean, Proctor already went over the cliff. Higgins pretty much went over the cliff. And the whole thing is going over the cliff. And it's just a matter of how many people are in the train when it goes over. And this is all so preventable and all so stupid. And I just can't help but wonder if the people that are doing this from the DA's office even know that this is wrong. And I can't think of a reason at this point now how they can't know it's wrong. They can't possibly think they have a provable case. And I don't know why they're doing this, but I think they're going to have a lot of trouble when this is over. And this was all so preventable.
They should have listened to your advice and just ended the trial on Monday, like you said.
Well, the crazy thing is, when I first started looking at this case, again, without even knowing everything, there were so many the first time we talked about it.
Right.
Actually, the first time we talked about it was about Wendy.
That's
the
right.
Second time, when I, did a little work to actually understand the case, and you asked what I thought then, and I said, there's no chance she's going to get convicted. And people thought I was crazy. And the reason was because there were just so many red flags with reasonable doubt. And now the more you dig in, it appears to go beyond reasonable doubt. It does kind of trend to complete innocence. But from a legal standpoint, innocence doesn't even matter. It's just reasonable doubt. It's everywhere. It's obvious. And why are they doing this? And the only thing, because none of this makes any sense, and this would be really disturbing, is you start to wonder, are they doing this because Morrissey is protecting himself, because he's concerned what will happen, and it's just a 1 in a million chance that she gets convicted and maybe the public goes along with it. I don't know, but somebody really should ask him, why are you doing this, knowing what the evidence is, knowing what Proctor did, knowing what the phone records are, knowing what the feds gave the defense, knowing the accident reconstruction, knowing the ME problem, knowing the DNA problem. No, I mean, you could go on and on and on. And there isn't a sane prosecutor in any office in this country who would say, this is a good case for us to try and get a conviction, it's just never going to happen. It never was going to happen. And here we are. Everyone's, running to court for another 3 weeks.
Now, we had a question from Ask Bob about what happens if it's like the Chestnut trial and it's a hung jury. We've answered this before. I mean, it's basically they have two choices. They can just be done with it, or they could try it again, right?
I mean, the crazy thing is, if there's a hung jury, then in theory, it would be up to the DA to decide. The public pressure, if they said we're going to try to retry her, and I don't care if it's 11-1, 6-6, whatever, people are going to say, taxpayers, politicians, we're done with this. And if he says, no, I'm doing it, then something is off here. Of course, I think this is an abstract exercise because it's going to be 12-0 and it's going to be not guilty.
There you go. That's what I think too. I mean, I think you think that too, Maza?
I think that this jury is going to be pretty decisive. I really
just
do.
Remember, anything the defense puts out there, which could plausibly demonstrate that she's not guilty, they have to essentially destroy the DA. They have to beat it down and say, that's not reasonable. There's no way, essentially. And they don't have one argument. They have about 400. I mean, just the cell phone records, right? The Google search. If they can't conclusively establish that Google search came at 6 whatever in the morning, they lose. Just from that alone.
There you go. I think that's what's going to happen. We'll see. Good luck tomorrow. We'll all be watching Attorney Bederow in court tomorrow.
Just sit there and do nothing and watch.
Are you smiling?
I don't need luck. I'll be there, but don't worry about me.
You're gonna enjoy it. Have fun. Make sure you don't do any protests in the protest.
I don't.
Did you guys hear the Solo Cup story today about the guy? What happened this afternoon?
No.
This guy showed up in a giant trash barrel that was made to look like a Solo Cup, and he had a free Karen Reed sign. But there was one problem: court got out early, but the buffer zone's open till 4:30. So this person was inside the buffer zone with a free Karen Reed sign, dressed up as a giant Solo Cup, and a few people had to go running over to get him out of there. And I don't know what ended up happening, but it was I'm looking down the street and all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? Kirsten Galvin from NBC. I saw her all the way down there and she ended up actually posting the video on her page. And I'm like, what's this? All of a sudden I'm looking down through I'm down near the church and I'm looking through the grassway there and I see this Solo Cup. I'm like, is that a giant Solo Cup walking up the street along the left side of the court towards the front? It was so funny.
That's another example to add to the list of how pathetic this is. I mean, the jury could very well just take every single piece of scientific evidence and just say, throw it out. It's just not credible. It's not reliable. So what do we do now? And I mean, and that's just one of many, many problems they have that should have been obvious to them.
Now we get one last question, I guess, for Mark. Is there a difference between acquittal and not guilty?
No. If you're not guilty, it's an acquittal. That's just a verdict of not guilty. No, I mean, an acquittal is a finding of not guilty.
And this is a good point too that they made at the end. They said DA is an elected official, so he's all done no matter what. I don't think Michael Morrissey will run for re-election, but it would be interesting if he resigned and they had to find a replacement. Maybe then they would decide to actually investigate the case and look at some suspects and do some testing.
Well,
I mean, it's
you
possible
know,
that could happen.
you raise an interesting point. Okay, if he is elected out, he has no control over who comes in. If he resigns or steps down and has a successor, I'm not sure how the politics fully work here locally, but he may have the ability to, put in a hack to replace that
Yeah.
hack as he exits.
Usually the way it works, I believe, is the governor actually appoints, because I remember that happened in Suffolk County, and they put the guy who won the election, Hayden, in. The governor picked him, so I think it would be Healey would actually pick. So that would probably be a reason why he won't resign, because I don't think they're close.
There is another interesting component to this too, which in terms of like somebody else looking at it, there's no statute of limitations on murder. So, they could find something in 17 years and try to prosecute someone for the murder. I don't think that's likely, but they could, you're never safe from a murder charge if you kill someone, unless you've been acquitted or jeopardy's attached and the case got messed up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and I let's hope that happens. Let's hope that it gets looked into with the next DA, since this DA failed so badly, and they solved the actual murder, because I think Karen Reed is going to be acquitted, and it's going to be, John O'Keefe still needs some justice. So
Yeah, no, it's terrible if it goes. I mean, he was treated poorly in the investigation, and it's kind of sad if he's just forgotten and no one's held accountable. That is a shame.
it is. That's why we'll keep on it. I thank you guys so much, because I mean, we're
Mike.
keeping the drum beat going. The three of us have been
Absolutely.
going every single night.
I love it.
It's amazing. I want to thank you both for being here every night. Thank you so
Thank you, Mike,
much.
for having us.
Like every day, everyone asks me, "Are you doing a show tonight? Is Maza going to be there? Is Bederow going to be there?"
Just remember, tomorrow, the pumpkin rule comes into play.
Oh yeah, the Celtics.
Yeah.
You got the Celtics, and you're going to be at the court.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'll do a show tomorrow night. Maybe we'll do the one this weekend. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe we'll hold it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Awesome.
We'll be looking for you at court, though. I can't wait to see you. We'll be looking to see where you're sitting.
If anyone's making fun of me because I'm falling asleep or picking my nose or something, I won't know, because I won't take out my phone. But
we'll tell you about it after.
If I doze off, I hope somebody next to me at least throws me an elbow, because I got to tell you, he puts me to sleep on a computer. I'm really
my God,
I'm really concerned about what it could do. In part, maybe I'll stare at Madam Court Reporter and make faces. That'll keep us all.
Wink at Bev. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. It was great talking to you again.
Thank you so much. No, by the way, people were asking me all day long what time the Young Jerks was on, and I said, well, I don't know, because my phone's been off most of the day.
Right. Yep.
There you go. They all want to know. Even my mods
tomorrow.
are asking me. My mods are after me all day. What time? What time?
Mark, check your inbox. I gave you a parking tip about tomorrow, by the way, if you need one.
Excellent. Thank you.
You got
Thank
it.
you
All
guys.
right,
Have a great night.
Take care, everybody. Free Karen Reed. Free Karen Reed. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. I love that he always ends on that.
Oh yeah.
We're the Young Jerks, and we got some Venmos coming. I got to make sure I thank everyone. Erica Madden just made a $49 donation on the super chat. Thank you so much, Erica. You are very generous. She gives a lot of great donations on the super chat and sometimes on Venmo too. She's amazing. Thank you so much. Erica Madden is the owner of the Star Drive-In in Taunton, Mass. They're doing a fundraiser actually for Karen Reed. Check out the Star Drive-In website. Pickled Pepper just came and said, how tall is Jim? I'm not sure who Jim is. Who are you talking about? Thank you for the donation. All right. Got a bunch of Venmos. John sent 20. He said, keep rocking. Free Karen Reed. Thank you so much, John. Lanya sent $10. She says, give Maza a huge shout out. Thank you so much, Lana. How do you say that right? Lanya. Elizabeth also sent $10. She says, love your show. Love the triple M's. Mike, Mark, Maza Media. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Let me get a drink here. All right. Gary sent $10. Said, thanks, Mike, Mark, and Maza. Free Karen Reed. Thank you so much, Gary. Carolyn sent $10. She says, Proctor's emotional response doesn't match his role. I work with law enforcement, ex-combat guys, and feds. Emotions get muted. It's actually a problem for guys being detached. Proctor's high emoting over Karen is super sus. He hates her because her innocence incriminates him. Good comment, Carolyn. Yeah, their emotions should be muted. And I would think that might actually be the issue for more law enforcement, is sometimes they're too detached. But not Proctor. Proctor is he's a feelings guy. Diane sent $15. She said, you guys are great. Free Karen Reed. Thank you so much, Diane. Colleen sent $10. She said, Coco loves your channel. You have the best guests. Keep up the great work. Trooper Proctor is the most vile man ever. AJ is the man. I don't know why Mass would continue to spend money on the Soprano spinoff. I agree 100%. Thank you so much, Colleen. Mary also sent $20. She said she's watching from Aubrey, Texas. Keep up the good work. Love, Mark. Thank you, Mary. Nicole sent $10. She says, free Karen Reed. It's a big night on Venmo. Denise sent $10. She said, what about the Tainted Gloves Tully pullout? Diane, another Diane, sent $10. She said, great show. All right, that's all on Venmo. I just want to check on the Cash App real quick. And I want to thank everyone who's been supporting, subscribing. We're about to hit 25,000. I can't believe it, on YouTube. Mike Walsh sent $25. Thank you so much, Mike. All right, that's it for Cashmo. Cash App. I said Cashmo. That was funny. Cash App and Venmo. Good comment. Leah M said, Karen did CPR, no DNA. Interesting, huh? Also, Jessica Pinky Bingo, she said, thanks for a great show. Always great with Mike, Mark, and Maza. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone who's been subscribing, donating, supporting, all the comments, just watching, all the people who watch regularly. I want to thank our moderators. They're awesome. Jeno, Emma, MJM on YouTube, and Stephanie. All three of them are awesome. Thank you so much for moderating and putting the links and keeping everyone happy in the chat. I just want to say, stop being mean to Maza. And even me. I know a lot of you law tubers out there, you love your Bederow. And if Bederow's not talking, you get a little upset. You sometimes you got to relax a little bit. You know? You guys wouldn't even know Bederow if it wasn't for Maza and myself. We're the ones who brought him out of his shell for the Karen Reed thing. You should be very thankful. Maza kept the show going too. When I was down and out, Maza, none of us might not even know who Mr. Bederow is, even though he was well known before this. He had some big cases. I don't know, if we hadn't offered this platform and I hadn't reached out to him, I'm not sure that you would have seen him talking about this case the way he has. So show a little respect. This is a big movement. Everyone gets their time to speak. It's not all about you in the comments. Yes, M says Maza is family, Harry. Absolutely. And I want to thank all the mods, especially. I want to thank Miss Shorty. I love her, from Australia. She bought a sweatshirt, a Young Jerk sweatshirt, posted it on Facebook, I think, or was it Twitter? I posted on our Facebook page. She looks adorable. She's wicked cute. And I want to thank her for always supporting us, sending super chats. She's got her own YouTube. She posts Karen Reed content too. Look for her, Miss Shorty. I want to thank everyone. It's a movement. It is. I didn't expect it to be a movement, but it has become a movement. Another comment here from says Yannetti or Jackson bring back Proctor or Eddie Alberts. Would that be a fruitful option? Fervent fans from Vegas and Pacific Palisades. Karen Reed is innocent. They could, but I don't think they will because there's, unless they have a good reason to. Attorney Bederow talked about this too. Like, you destroyed Proctor. Why would you want to bring him back on stand? To give him an opportunity to redeem himself? I mean, not that he's redeemable at this point, but when you get a win against one of these witnesses and you discredit them totally, there's no reason to bring them back. So, and I think the defense has even said they were to respect the jury's time. So they're going to their defense is going to be witnesses that totally destroy the prosecution. And it's going to be those experts that we talked about tonight. They have accident reconstruction. They have a canine expert. They have PhDs. They're going to bring out the PhDs. They're going to bring out maybe Berkowitz. Anyone that they can get that the prosecution didn't bring out that they should have, they're going to go maybe after those types of people. And they might even skip Berkowitz just because they want to cut to the chase. So I don't think the prosecution, the defense is going to bring back prosecution witnesses when they already destroyed them. They don't want to be like Lally. They don't want to be disrespecting the jury. They want to get this case done as soon as possible with the best witnesses. So I feel like they probably won't bring them back. And Attorney Bederow has said that quite a bit too. All right, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We'll be broadcasting Friday from court. And we'll see, hopefully, Attorney Bederow. I probably, you know what, since we may not do a show tomorrow night, we'll see. I could do a live. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do one solo. But I think I may air the Canton police audit hearing that happened the other night that we didn't get to air. So I may do that tomorrow night. And maybe we'll catch up with Attorney Bederow on Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. Everything's up in the air. Check our YouTube and Facebook. You'll find the notifications. We update it there first as soon as we know. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us, streaming us, sending money. We'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Thank you so much to Attorney Bederow, and thank you to Maza Media, and thank you for everyone who's watching. Still 5,000 of you watching right now at 11 o'clock at night. Thank you so much. 5,000 on YouTube. We still got a bunch on Facebook too, and a couple people on Twitch. I gotta log into Twitch. I gotta update our Twitch. I'll see everyone tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Thank you so much. Have a great Friday, because we're almost there. 1 hour to Friday. Some of you are already there. I'm sorry we went so late. I know some of the Europeans can't stay up that late. We got a lot of European followers now. I hope you enjoyed on the replay. We'll see everyone in the morning.